Part 2 of the Kaiser Domination series. As we know in the last episode, Germany won World War I. And now, there's something we need to look into now, and that's Austria. Ever since this war was done, Austria has destabilized. And due to this, in their rapidly weakening state, a lot of people are unhappy, especially the Hungarians, the Slovaks, the Czechs, the Ukrainians, the Poles, the Croats, and every group basically in there. And well, what starts the civil war? Well, Hungary quickly launches an attack as a Hungarian national army is formed. And quickly, they rise up across the place, and quickly they start to take lands, setting up the Hungarian state with the Hungarian People's Nation. The Hungarian Nationalist Army has taken some lands. With, at this point, Germany, Italy, and allies, Germans and allies send in forces to support Austria in the civil war of their allies. But will that support last? And with this, they manage to launch a small counter-offensive. But people across the empire are not happy with the empire, and this leads to communist rebels rising up across the nation. Mostly in like the Austria, Czechia, a lot rise up there. Some rise up in the Balkans, and a lot rise up in the north. And quickly they form the People's Republic of Austria. The People's Communist Austria-Hungary. With them not really managing to rise up around Hungarian lands, but that doesn't mean they won't. And with this, they quickly gain lands, and the declaration of their republic begins, which they start taking land rapidly in the north. And at this point, well, Hungarian continuing its advances, taking more lands. And this time, no one's going to come to save Austria. And now for Serbia's declaration of independence. And Serbia is finally independent again, with vengeance as they start mobilizing and building up an army. But at this time, a Slovak uprising begins. And they uprise across the north. And it's really not great. And they take a lot of land. Quickly, they rapidly advance along these lands, with them taking some of the communist lands and moving towards Hungarian rebels. And at this point, we see the rebels in Czechia rise up. And yeah, as they quickly rise up across Czechia's lands, they quickly launch a revolt in the north, in Czech lands. And well, the communists started having a bit of problems in this area of the empire. But with this, the communists continue their rebellions. And they connect up over here. And at this point, we can see a Ukrainian uprising in Ukraine, as they quickly rise up in a few areas. And Ukrainian rebels rise up to form a Ukrainian nation. At this point, German and Italian troops withdraw, realizing they're not gaining anything out of this, as now the Polish revolt breaks out. And they quickly take lands. And well, they start to look like this. And well, Croatia revolts at this point, with the Croatian Revolutionary Army rising up. The Croatian Liberation Army managing to take some areas across their lands within their empire, with them connecting lands here and moving inland more. And at this point, the Austrian Civil War begins, with forces in Hungary advancing north, west, and even south, and to the east, west, and every direction. Well, they quickly start getting lands that are part of them to declare joining them. With the Croatian army advancing north. Well, there's a few reasons why support stops showing up, and one is mainly due to all this communism and a lack of properties. With Vienna falling, but luckily the Austrian Empire manages to get to exile. And well, they launch an advance over here, with communist revolutions being around them. With them advancing into Croatian lands, and yeah. And well, Czechia makes an advance, managing to make it to the border and into more Czech lands. And they become looking like this, with Polish rebels moving along in the Polish territories. Well, the Hungarian rebels barely hold any of their land. Well, Ukrainian rebels collapse this pocket and then they move north. And over here along the Austrian border, intervention isn't happening yet. But just wait, it will. And well, the communists take more land. Hungary launches a massive offensive as they manage to get to the Romanian border. As Hungarian lands start getting taken back by them. As Slovak rebels taking more land. And Croatian rebels. And communist and Polish rebels gain lands. As this part is the Civil War. As no new revolts have happened. With the Ukrainians taking over this land. And at this point we have Romanian Intervention beginning. With them declaring war on Austria-Hungary. Well, what's left of it. Because it's starting to weaken and fracture into multiple nations. And with this gives opportunity to this nation to take few nations to take land. Well, with Hungarians wherever Hungary is. Declaring their sovereignty. Quickly after this, the communist forces over here. With Romanian forces deciding to invade Hungarian lands. And well, communists start taking more land. Especially in these areas. And well, the front over here manages to advance. And while Poland, the Polish rebels started advancing. And well, with communists starting to take over the Balkans, Serbia decides it's its time to revolt. With communist revolutions happening in southern Hungary. Well, Serbia decides to join. and interfere with the war. Well, they're going to have their borders changed, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. That area that doesn't look good on the borders. Well, they push against the communists here, as Croatian rebels start pushing in further. And well, this leads to the front line looking like this. Nope, that was wrong. Looking like this. And well, at this point, Austria surrenders to the communists. Well, the communists start an invasion of Czechia, and they quickly take it over. Now, the Slovak forces going against these rebels, along with the Polish revolutionary, with the communists area of it ending up advancing. With the fall of Austria, that will be called. And well, Serbia didn't manage to get as much land. With the Hungarian army doing a lot. With them invading Slovakia. And this becomes known as the Hungarian invasion of Slovakia. And well, at this point, Italy and Germany's had enough. And they decide to join this war. And they start supporting Hungary. Which leads to this red area. Yes, it's still communist, but it'll be blue. With Italy joining this because they want to get lands that they believe are rightfully theirs. And Germany to liberate Austria. Well, they call it liberate, but it's not really. As they start entering into Czechia. And start moving in. And then they manage to move in and capture Prague. With these two areas ending up falling. With Italian and German forces managing to create a corridor. And the same thing happens with with the Serbian army. With Hungary launching a rapid offensive to make sure they continue to have a coast. Because they need the coast. Them taking this part of the northern part, and at this point, Serbia starts pushing them back and takes back these lands from communist control. With them managing to take Vienna. Well, at this point, Hungary continues its offensives. As Vienna falls, a surrender happens. And at this point, Romania declares war on Hungary. Romania and Serbia declares war on Hungary. And the anti-Hungarian coalition army breaks out. And well, the islands here get taken over by Serbian forces, but Hungary goes against that and takes these lands back and starts pushing Serbia back. And they do pretty good. They also push Romania back. Not as much success. With Romania picking up its offensive. And Serbia in these lands. With them heading for an encirclement of most of Transylvania's territory. Hungary ends up almost creating an encirclement leading to their withdrawal. And well, the Hungarian forces get pushed back more. But they decide to go push Romania back in this area. Seeing this as not going to end up in their victory, with Serbia launching another advance with Romania's help over here. Hungary decides to go for peace with the Romania-Serbian War to the south. Anti-Hungarian War ends. And well, let's see the peace treaty. Romania annexing parts of Transylvania in the south. Serbia annexes parts of Banat, not all of it. Most of Bosnia, but not all of it. Parts of Croatia, and well, all the lands they had just lost, they have back. And well, Hungary is bigger than it should be. That's okay, because now we have a free West Ukraine and South Poland, but both sides want to try to get them. Well, right now, Hungary is neutral, but they quickly start aligning towards the German Pact, or the Kaiser, I guess. Maybe we could call it something like that, but I don't think so. Well, a new puppet's made by Germany, the Austrian puppet. But they do plan to annex it. It is a planned annexation, with Poland and Ukraine trying to get control over some areas. And the Ottomans are getting weaker slowly. Britain's waiting. And in the next episode, the withdrawal from France happens. And well, not long after, Hungary finally joins the German Pact, fearing about its enemies and communist uprisings. With Bulgaria having a lot of enemies, even the Ottomans want a part of them. Everyone. And well, Russia's starting to weaken and more revolutions are probable. And well, that's pretty much all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out, and until you subscribe. Bye, guys!